Okay, so when I say the word pirate, what immediately pops into your head? Probably chaos with a hat, right? Shouting, swords, maybe a bottle of rum. And careers that are usually really short and really violent. And look, that's a great image for a movie, but it's totally useless if we want to understand the single most powerful pirate who ever lived. Because her story isn't about chaos, it's about control.
So right off the bat, we have to ask ourselves a pretty big question. What actually makes a pirate powerful? Is it just being the toughest person on the ship, the one who's best with a sword? Or is it something else entirely, something quieter and a whole lot more effective?
Yeah, the myth, the Hollywood version, it's all about chaos and bravado. But here's the thing, chaos doesn't build empires. Chaos builds a long list of people who died for really dumb reasons. The reality, the thing that made the most successful pirate in history so incredibly terrifying, wasn't reckless rebellion. It was, believe it or not, frighteningly good management.
All right, so let's get into it. Let's meet her. Her name was Zheng Yi Sao. And before she was terrifying governments, she lived a life that was so quiet, history barely even noticed her. But this wasn't just a boring backstory. This was basically her education, her research phase, if you will.
For a while, she worked in a floating brothel. And that might not sound like the start of a pirate empire, but it was like getting a PhD in human nature. She was surrounded by powerful men, merchants, officials, criminals, who basically forgot she was there. They'd talk freely because, to them, she was invisible. And she listened. She learned exactly how deals were really made, how fragile their egos were, and where the real power flowed. So when the opportunity came to marry this well-known pirate captain Zheng Yi, this wasn't some whirlwind romance. Come on, this was a business merger, a strategic alignment. It got her a seat at the table. It gave her access to an entire floating underworld that she had only been able to observe from the sidelines. And while everyone else saw adventure and chaos, she saw a business that was being run really, really badly. She saw waste, she saw inefficiency,
And then, suddenly her husband dies. Now, in the pirate world, this is the moment everything falls apart, right? The crew scatter, the fleet dissolves, everyone expected total collapse. But that's not what happened. Instead, she stepped up. And she didn't do it by swinging a sword and yelling. She did it with something way more powerful, a plan. This is the moment piracy stopped being improvisation and started being administration.
You see, her approach was so revolutionary because she understood something absolutely critical. You don't actually need to be the most violent person in the room if everyone already knows what the rules are. What she introduced was something that on the surface, every pirate would hate, but deep down, it's what they desperately needed: consistency.
Now look at these rules. They are brutally simple, and there are absolutely no exceptions. And you have to understand, this wasn't her trying to be a good person, this was her being a good CEO. This was quality control. Think about it. Randomly stealing from civilians, attacking female captives, that is terrible for business. It makes local villages hate you, it invites massive retaliation, and it creates chaos within your own ranks. Her laws weren't about morality, they were about profit and efficiency.
Let's just break it down, the old way versus her way. Before her, it was a total mess. Loot, it was basically whoever was strongest or loudest got the biggest share. Discipline depended entirely on the captain's mood that day. Loyalty, it lasted as long as you were winning. But under her system, everything changed. Loot was distributed based on a clear, predictable formula. The laws were the laws, period. And suddenly, loyalty wasn't about liking the captain. It was about the fact that following her system made you richer and more likely to survive. She professionalized the whole operation.
So, with this new, hyper-organized structure in place, her fleet stopped being just a bunch of criminals. They became something way, way more dangerous. They basically became a rival government on the water, a parallel power that controlled the entire South China Sea.
And this wasn't some ragtag group of boats. The Red Flag Fleet was a full-on naval force. I mean, it was color-coded. Different squadrons with different colored flags had their own assigned patrol routes, their own targets. They controlled choke points. They blockaded major trade ports. They weren't just raiding anymore. They were functioning like a state. They were collecting taxes or, protection money. But when you get that big, it's pretty much the same thing.
Now you'd think the actual government, the Qing Imperial Navy, would just roll in and crush them, right? On paper, they had everything. Bigger ships, heavier guns, but they kept losing. Why? Because her fleet had smaller, faster ships. They knew the coastline like the back of their hand, And while the Navy was trying to fight a formal, set-piece battle, she was using guerrilla tactics. They'd hit and run, organize retreats. They just refused to fight the war the empire wanted them to fight.
And this right here is what truly terrified the empire. It's the moment when coastal merchants and villagers started realizing, hey, paying the pirates for protection is actually cheaper and more reliable than waiting for the Navy. The government's authority wasn't a fact anymore. It became optional. And for any state, that is the absolute worst-case scenario. Okay, so after years of this, of humiliating the most powerful navy in the region, of running this incredibly profitable criminal empire, Zheng Yi Sao does the single most shocking thing imaginable. Something no pirate story ever prepares you for. She quit. And not because she was cornered or losing, she quit at the absolute height of her power. It was the ultimate mic drop.
Think about this for a second. The number of pirates in all of history who have fought an empire to a standstill and then negotiated their own retirement from a position of total strength is one. Just her. The government knew they couldn't beat her, so they did the only thing they could do. They sat down to talk.
And just look at the terms she demanded for her amnesty. A full pardon for herself and every single one of her thousands of followers. She demanded the right to keep all of her money, and she was incredibly wealthy. And, get this, she negotiated for many of her best pirates to be hired into the official Chinese Navy. Let's be clear, this isn't the government being generous. This is the government admitting they've lost.
So why does her story feel so weird to us? It doesn't quite fit the mold, does it? It's because we love stories about rebels and villains who go out in a blaze of glory. Her story isn't really about rebellion. It's about competence. And sometimes pure, unshakable competence is way more unsettling than wild-eyed rebellion. I mean, just look at this career path. It's unbelievable. She starts in the early 1800s, basically as an analyst, just observing how inefficient everything is. By 1807, she's the CEO, implementing a strict corporate policy. For the next few years, she drives her main competition, the Qing Navy, into the ground. And then, in 1810, she negotiates her golden parachute and retires. She lives out the rest of her life as a wealthy, successful businesswoman running a casino. No epic final battle, no tragic downfall. She just won and then went home. And that, right there, is probably the key to the whole thing. The classic pirate wants to burn the whole system to the ground. She had no interest in that. She didn't need to overthrow the system. She just understood it so well and was so much better at it that she forced the system to make a special exception just for her. Then she walked away.
So that leaves us with one last question to chew on. We're always told to fear the chaotic rebel, the person who wants to tear everything down. But maybe her story shows us something different. Maybe the truly dangerous person isn't the one screaming for revolution. Maybe it's the one quietly building a better system. So what do you think? What's really more dangerous?